So a lot of times I get asked, how did I build this shelf on top of the boat like this? And I'm going to go through in this video. I'm going to actually do a little modification to this shelf. So I'm going to take it apart and I'm going to actually show you the modification I do and how to do it. But this shelf is kind of unique in what it does, because it specifically was designed to hold this trolling motor. It wasn't really designed to be something you could stand on, even though you can stand on it. Initially it was designed to hold this, and the thing about this trolling motor is when you stand it up like this and are actually using it, the weight of what it's trying to do is actually, it tries to go like this. So it's actually trying to pull itself off the boat. So it wasn't really secured to this platform, and the platform wasn't secured to the boat. I could have a problem losing a pretty expensive trolling motor. So that was the purpose of it, and for that purpose it actually worked out just fine. The problem that I was having with it is, just by habit, I kept wanting to pick the boat up by lifting up on the actual shelf itself, which it wasn't designed for initially, and that was actually caused it to kind of pop loose a little bit. And that's been fixed, but I still found a couple spots I got to reinforce a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to take the shelf apart and I'm going to strengthen it a little bit, doing some modifications. So that's what this video will be about. Okay, now I took in the platform that was carpeted off, and now it was just a 1/2-inch piece of plywood that I put some carpet around. This is actually the frame that puts the whole thing together. This is aluminum square tubing, and what I did is I did what's known as aluminum brazing to put it together. And just so you know, all you need is some MAP gas, you know, the yellow propane containers, and you can get these special flex rods. I got them at Harbor Freight, like 10 bucks for a whole pack of them, and it works just like soldering. You basically just heat it up, you know, like right here, and then you just start putting it in there, and it will just eventually it will melt, and it will just form this nice little weld. And I welded this whole thing together. I'm not a welder at all. I have done soldering, so it really wasn't bad. So that's actually how I built this, and I wanted it out of aluminum because I wanted it to be strong yet very, very light. This fit the bill for me perfectly. The other thing I just want you to notice, I put in this little well here. So this wasn't part of the boat before. This was actually all plastic. And actually I drilled this out and put this well in there, and inside of there I have all my wiring, so that allowed me to fish my wires through to put this in. This is right here is a 60 amp switch that's fused for protecting the trolling motor. Okay, if that's something that Dakota wants me to do, so that's what I did. What I did is, you can see right here, I put one of these angle brackets on here, and I put a well nut right here, and I put a well nut right here. That's just to kind of hold it on the corners here. Now this isn't really designed to have a lot of weight, and obviously if I go to pick this thing up, my problem was initially is I had a smaller well nut in here, and what it would do is it would pop right out. So what I did to fix that is I changed these to what's known as 1/4 well nuts. Let me just show you what one of those are. I have a whole box of them here because I kind of use them all the time now. This is the well nut right here, and it's just a piece of rubber. It has kind of like a screw in here. This is a 1/4 bolt. What happens, the bolt goes in like this, and as you tighten this bolt up, what happens is this is inside a hole in the boat, and it will actually push this up like this. It will actually compress this together. This becomes much wider and actually locks it into place. It's not really designed to hold a lot of weight, so actually lifting with this thing can be a problem. I'm going to show you how I fixed that, but that's what I use them for. I love these things. I use them anytime I need to do some sort of fastening in the boat. I always use a well nut instead of a rivet, at least in most cases. I guess I'm lying because I use regular screws there. But anyway, these are really nice for stuff that I want to possibly be removed later or whatever. I use these well nuts. And the thing is if I decide I don't need that anymore, yeah, now I got a hole in my boat, I just pop one of these plugs in there, pop this thing in there, screw it down to the site, and it's sealed up. So these actually work out really nice. And I use the 1/4 well nuts. I think they're officially, let me get the box here. Yeah, they're 1/4 by 20s. That's what I use. So it's a 1/4 hole for the bolt, and it's a 1/2 hole for this. You can see where I end up doing that in this application. So one of the things I initially did to solve the problem of these popping out when I put pressure on this thing was I added this bracket here, this little corner bracket, and I put a well nut in here, and I did the same thing on this side. I know I'm not perfect with all my cuts and all my welds. I did the best I could, but the thing is what this does is this allows the well nut to be in at an angle on the boat like this. So when the pressure's going up, it's a lot stronger because now it's lifting like this and it can't do it. When you put them in like this and the pressure's going up, it's easier for them to pop out like that. Okay, so this is kind of here to secure it, but actually this right here, this reinforces it so that when I lift here, it actually locks in here as well. Same thing on this side, and they actually solved the problem. The problem I'm having now that I want to fix is, and I'll move the camera so we can see it a little bit better. It's kind of right there. You won't see it super up close, but it's this bolt right here. This is a smaller weld nut, and this is already popped out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this one here, and there's another one on that side that I'm going to replace there, and with this 1/4 So I'm just going to put a much bigger one, more solid one in there, and that will fix my problem. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these out and put the bigger ones in. Now, unfortunately, to be able to do this right, I actually have to take all the bolts out and kind of remove this off to drill things out correctly. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now with all the bolts out, I can just lift this rack right off like this. This thing's feather light, like I say, nothing to it. And you can see, here's the weld nuts that I have already installed in the boat. This one could be pushed in just a little bit more, but it's doing fine. All right, so what I need to do is I need to pull this one out, which, see, it pulls out like that. So you can kind of see the difference in the weld nuts. Here's the smaller one that I initially did right here, and there's the bigger one. So there's quite a big difference between these two, and that's why this one was failing. And I'll just go ahead and pull that one out too. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to drill a 1/4 inch hole into my brace right here, and then a 1/2 inch hole for these. Always be careful when you're drilling in these plastic boats, you don't drill all the way through. Okay, so I have a 1/2 inch hole here, 1/2 inch hole here. Off camera, I drilled the holes in for the rack at a 1/4 inch. So now I'm all set with the drilling. All I gotta do is just put it all back together. Okay, so here's a 1/2 inch hole right here. Here's the weld nut right here, and when you make it, you want to make sure it's going to be really tight like that. You don't want to have any slack. So see how that one's real tight? That's what you want when you're doing these. So just go ahead and just pop that one in like that. Now when I put this rack back in, it's going to fit a little tight. It's going to be a little tight here, and here, and here, and here, because those other ones are a little bit thinner. It will work just fine. It just might have to be finagled a little bit. And I'm going to wear my gloves, and I highly recommend it when you're working with this aluminum stuff. Even though I filed a lot of this down, you never know where a sharp edge might be, so I usually wear my gloves when I start really having to work with this thing. This one's going to be a little tight here, but actually we're looking pretty good overall. When you're putting these weld nuts back in, lining something up like this, you want to make sure you don't put the weld nuts in super tight. Okay, initially you want them in just so they're going to be kind of holding it in place, but not necessarily super tight. Okay, it's back in, everything's good. The problem I had was with this one down here. Once I got all these in, it didn't want to quite align correctly, and it looks like it just stripped it out a little bit, so I just replaced it. But all these went in, they're back in, they're secure. Everything's good. And remember, the trick is, one, using weld nuts, and use a good size weld nut. Again, I recommend the 1/4 that I used right here, and you can just use a 1/4 bolt with them. They're thick, they tend to do a good job. Yes, you have to drill holes to make this work, and I know that's an issue with some people about drilling holes into these plastic boats. They're scared of it, they don't want to do it. I've done a few modifications now with plastic boats, including this one, of course, and I drill holes in it wherever I feel I need to, including drain plugs right in the pontoons. You just know what you're doing, and just remember, you can always seal stuff back up. You know, one way or the other, you can seal a hole up in these boats pretty easily. But anyway, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the top back on, which is basically just a couple bolts, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So 4 bolts, I'll have this top back on, and everything will be good to go. All back together again. It took me maybe 10-15 minutes to put the shelf back on, the trolling motor, remount my little tackle box, and I'm good to go, ready for another trip.